Hi. Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast, and Happy New Year. I know it's a bit late, but it's always good to have you on.
Yeah, Adam, I love our conversations. I love when we get together and get to talk. New Year's happening for both of us. Unfortunately, it started on a low point for you. Unfortunately, you
Yeah,
got Omicron, but I'm glad that you're getting over it and that you're healthy and we're moving forward with the new year.
yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And yeah, it was a funny one. Beginning of the year that happened, and it was a lot of uncertainty. I think I think because there's been so much hype around the virus and a lot of media attention over the couple of years. We're being told a lot of scary things. You see a lot of things in the media. You kind of think, oh, is this it? Um, but then after a week, it was okay, and look after yourself, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm good looking ahead for the new year, and looking forward to doing work with you and the podcast. And I think the new year brings a lot of kind of fresh scope for people, doesn't it? I think it kind of like a new clean slate. A lot of people think about the mindset. I think a lot of people create new habits, and I think it can be difficult starting new things, can't it? And it's kind of trying to keep to that. What do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. Do you do a vision board? I did a vision board, and a few things on my vision board was having perspective. And what I mean by that is when you're in a state, I did a video of this, gosh, I uploaded today, um, where things aren't going your way, whether that's your health, your relationships with your spouse, family, friends, job, business, whatever it is, and you're kind of at that low point, things just doesn't seem like they're going the way you want them to go. It's important that we have perspective on that, because there's people in the world today right now that would trade your problems for their problems. So we need to remember that a lot of times we're lucky on where we are in our lives and where we're at. It's really not as bad as what it seems when you see what other people are struggling with and anything going. Having perspective is huge, and it helps me break out of that funk, knowing that there is a lot of things that I'm grateful for. So having that perspective puts me in that state where I can say, oh man, I am grateful that I have a roof over my head. I have clients that work with me, dealing with different things, good relationships with my family. So perspective is huge on there. Another thing on my list is believing in myself. I think a lot of times we get in our head and we get in this grandiose thing of what that means, believing in yourself. But for me, believing in myself is enjoying the now and being okay with myself right now, not who I am in the past, not who I want to be in the future, but enjoying who I am now, believing in the skills that I have right this moment, believing that I can help people, believing that people seek out the help. So those are the main things on my vision board. Do you have a vision board?
I have a board, but I'm yet to use it as a vision board, if that makes
Mm.
sense. It's something that I like to do. Because I use my phone a lot, and I was thinking of creating like a vision board maybe on my phone, like having photos, or having like a file on Canva or something with images. But then it's something that I want to do this year, because I think imagery is very effective, and seeing something kind of keeps that constant reminder of it. And it's what you have to do, isn't it? You have to kind of see it to kind of believe it, and keep on seeing it in your mind, don't you? You have to keep on seeing it, that imagery on a vision board, so that you can kind of manifest that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, different people do different things.
Yeah,
It's helpful to me. When you talk about having it on your phone, the only issue I would have with that is if it's just in a file, I create
yeah.
this vision board, I'll never see it again.
Mm,
So for me, I like to have it where it's visual, like where I can see it before I go to bed or when I
mm,
wake up, just as a good reminder But like people, like you said, you have to get, nobody has to do anything. I mean, people do different things. People
Mm,
not believe in vision boards and are very successful. For me, it's a help, but it's not the end all be all. But I like to, I'm a visual person,
mm,
so I like to see things. So for me, it would be a help. But other people, they learn different way, like through audio or by touch or feeling. So there's different ways of doing things. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to have some sort of goals set for yourself, whether it be in your business or in your career or your personal life or anything. I mean, it could be as simple as making somebody smile. It
mm.
doesn't have to be something grandiose. So every person's different, but for me, I think it's a helpful for me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, everyone kind of works in different ways, and I think, like you said, it's so important to have goals that you kind of working towards, and whether they're small goals or big goals, having something that you're kind of working towards, really, I think, and that's going to add value to your life or other people's lives, or because I think we ultimately deserve to, have a good, happy, life and have things that we want to have. I think like we all deserve that. We all deserve to have nice things. We all deserve to have a good quality life. And I think you can do that, can't you, through putting in those steps, putting down goals, manifesting, putting those those necessary actions to get those things because they're not going to manifest themselves, are they? Just kind of automatically.
Yeah, more importantly, it's good to have purpose. Have some sort of
Mm,
purpose in your life. I think is huge. Whether that purpose is you being a good father or a good mother or a good friend or whatever that is, but having that purpose of getting up in the morning and knowing there's something I want to do today. I think that's huge. More than the material things or anything like that. I think that the moment we start to get in a funk or depressed or things start to go around when we're in stagnant, we're confused, we don't know what's happening in our lives, we're lost and lost our purpose. And I think once we figure out our purpose, then a lot of other things come into line with getting out of that funk and helping out with the depression. And now I'm not saying that just because you have a purpose doesn't mean you won't be depressed or anything like that. There's different diagnoses, and I'm not a doctor, and I understand that people need medication and everything like that. And that's fine. Talk to your doctor about that. But I'm saying, though, overall, if you have some sort of purpose when you wake up every morning, you're going to feel better about yourself as opposed to just waking up and just kind of going through the motions of the day, but just have an actual plan. And that could be just as simple as going outside and smelling the flowers. It doesn't have to be something so complex, but just living a purposeful life is very important.
yeah, I think that's so true and really powerful. And I think like that purpose is massive because like you said, getting up in the morning, having something to show up for, whether that's a job or whether that's being a father, a parent, and it's that drive I think within you, and it kind of gives you that overall happiness, doesn't it? If you have a deep purpose, and I remember I just think when you mentioned that, it made me think about 2020, and I was unemployed, and I did a lot of podcasts, and it got doing the podcast, getting up, gave me that purpose to kind of, get up and show up, because I made arrangements for episodes, and I had to show up to not disappoint those people. So that gave me a purpose because I think podcasting does kind of give you a purpose, doesn't it? You're providing value and putting something out there which people kind of rely on, whether that's audio format or video format, and so forth. But I think, like you said, purpose is a big thing. And I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but I think being a parent is definitely a purpose, isn't it? And I spoke to someone the other day who's their partner's pregnant, and he's kind of got this new kind of lease of life because he's like, I need to do well. I've got a purpose now to provide for this child. So I think it's massive in people, and like I said, that to have that direction of doing something, and I think sometimes people might not really know what their purpose is. And I think you find it by trying things out. I think that's how I kind of found mine. And sometimes you have to go through anxiety, you have to jump through uncomfortable emotions, don't you?
Oh, I think anything that you do, you're not growing if you're not going through some sort of uh, nervous feeling or anxiety because you're doing something new. You're pushing yourself out of that comfort zone. Anytime you try to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're going to have that feeling. It will never, ever go away. But the good news about it is you can embrace it and say, oh man, I have this nervous feeling because I'm trying something new. And you could say, wow, that's good. I'm pushing myself. So I'm glad that I had that feeling because I know I'm doing something that I normally don't do, and that's growth. Um, I don't know if I shared this with you on your podcast before, but a popular singer here in the States, he's been a big singer since the '60s, by the name of Bruce Springsteen, and he did an interview fairly recently, and they asked him about stage fright, and he says that he still to this day still gets stage fright before he gets on the concert floor. And he says to himself, before I get on stage, I get a tickle in my stomach. I can't feel my feet and my hands are tingling. But the next thing he says, he goes, now I know I'm ready now I know it's showtime. So he uses that feeling of nervousness into excitement and knowing that he's going to go on stage and he's going to give it its all. So I like to use that as, back to the word perspective, somebody who still sold millions and millions and millions of records, has done millions and millions of concerts. And to this day, before he goes on to a big concert, he still gets nervous. So don't beat yourself up, if you still get that nervous feeling, because I feel like that's part of life and that's part of growth, of having that feeling and pushing yourself forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. And I think like what you said with Bruce Springsteen, I think I saw that as well. And he you think of that level of performance as well and that pressure, I think anyone would feel nervous or giddy or excited or scared doing that, isn't it? To that level as well. I don't think, like you said, it never kind of goes away. It's just how you manage that, isn't it? I think you probably just get better at managing those emotions, and it's kind of part of that process, isn't it? Really, of that and everything. And I think if you didn't feel anything or any nervousness, I don't know, it kind of be boring if you didn't have some nervousness or excitement or some kind of fear. It kind of sometimes works in a way where it can kind of give you more of a boost or bit of that bit of drive, that bit of energy. It's like if you go into a job interview and you're a bit nervous or a bit excited, or you're meeting someone for the first time, it kind of adds to that kind of magic, if that makes sense. Do you think?
Oh yeah, it definitely heightens your senses, all of them, when you're in that state, especially you talk about job interview or performing presentation or asking somebody on a date, whatever it is, you have that heightened ability. And if you could use that to help you, that will help you go push yourself further. And when you do that, whatever that is for you, that you have that uncomfortable feeling and you push it, after you complete that task, you feel so good about yourself because you pushed yourself further than you ever thought you could go. And there's nothing better than that feeling. But yeah, you definitely, you talk about that, about you saying that, life would be boring if you didn't have those senses. Well, that's not being a human, right? Not having those feelings. I mean, we all have these feelings of excitement, nervousness, happy, sad, angry, anxiety. That's what makes us human beings. We have these feelings, and we just have to manage them and use them to help us get to where we want to go.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and I think like you mentioned, like with the emotions, like you see a lot of people who sometimes might do things to try and block them out, and I think like that's not really the way, is it really? I think a lot of people sometimes do that by taking things or whatever, or doing certain activities. I think we see that in a lot of life, and I think there's that kind of side to it as well, isn't there? Some people, it's too much sometimes, certain emotions. But I think it's like how you manage that, isn't it? By having the right people to talk to, having kind of good outlets, uh, and just I think noticing that, isn't it? Being quite mindful. I think you have to be quite mindful sometimes as a person to kind of check in with yourself. Do you think?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is sometimes we mask our feelings, and we mask our feelings with some people use alcohol or drugs or some negative things to mask
Mm.
those feelings because they want to feel that way, whatever that feeling is to them. And and there's other ways you could do that by you, like you alluded to, is talking about it and hitting the problem head on, exercise, all kinds of stuff that can be positive for you. The thing is, as human beings, there's times in our lives where we're scared. We're scared of that emotion, and we just don't want to go there. So it's just easier, going down the route of masking it with, alcohol or drug use, rather than, heading the problem head on, because you really have to. Sometimes when you do have to hit that emotion head on, you have to go further down that rabbit hole, and you feel worse than you do now before you get better. And people realize that, and they don't want to do it because it's much easier just bearing the problem with masking it with, like I said, stimuluses and such. So, but in the end, it's going to make it worse. That rabbit hole that you go deep, if you don't handle it, is going to go much, much deeper if you go down that route of disguising it with alcohol and drug use. It could get to a point where you might not be able to return. So sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and face those emotions. And like you said, Adam, talk with a professional or a friend, or get some exercise, do some positive things to get over these issues, as opposed to just masking them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think they're really, really great points. And I think, that's one of the positives, I think, with social media, isn't it? You can meet people, you can network with people. Like, we met on, social media, and we met. And, there's so many people out there who you can get on with and talk to, isn't there? And there's a lot of materials and positive materials you can find in podcasts and, like content like yours, and there's so many other podcasts out there as well. And like, your content's great because, step out your comfort zone, and you do a video, you put good positive messages out there. And, you don't know who's going to listen to that content, do you? Or who's going to take something from it. And, they might do something similar. They might do a podcast with a friend, or so it's those kind of positive ripples, isn't it? That's one of the powerful things about this. When you're a creator, when you create content, it's quite humbling, isn't it? Really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love checking out your stuff, Adam. You have great content. A lot. You keep me on my toes with, the podcast that you do and episodes that you do. And I love checking out your videos because, again, it helps me, gives me ideas, helps me if I'm in a funk or what
Yeah.
have you, because you do have some good insight. Um, but you got to be careful though with social media. Like you have a positive message, and there's a lot of other people that we both follow that have a positive message as well, and I think that's great. But overall, social media can be a space where it doesn't bring the best out of you, because a lot of times when we look at social media, we start to compare our lives to somebody else's lives, and we just see their highlight reel, right? We just see the good stuff that's going on in their lives. They don't post a lot of times their struggles. They just post what's going on, their vacations, and the good times with their family and stuff. And we start to think, wow, how come I don't have that? How come I'm not always that happy? How come I'm not going to that place? All kinds of stuff going in your head. And the reality is, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to anybody else. We don't know where their starting line is, and we do not know where their finishing line is. So it's impossible to size yourself up to anybody else. So all you can do is be the best person you can be. And so when you do look at your social media feed and it does get you down this weird rabbit hole, just have a little bit of perspective going, okay, you know what? I don't know what's really going on in their lives. You know what? I'll celebrate them if they're having a good time and everything like that. I'll like it. I'll comment on it. But don't start to, go down that rabbit hole of why is my life not that way? It's just, you just don't really know what's going on. So it's just impossible to really compare yourself. So, it's important that if you get that way to limit your social media as such. Now, you and I, Adam, we're in a weird space with social media. And what I mean by that is we use our social media for business as well. So we're on social media constantly. I mean, I see you on Instagram, I see you on LinkedIn, I see you on TikTok, and I'm on those, and I'm also on Facebook. I know you're not a big Facebook guy, but whatever. So I don't want to give an excuse while I'm on social media so much, because there's times where I need to limit my social media intake, because it's not being a positive thing for me and it's not being progressive for me to be on it. Now, a lot of times I am on social media because, we're creating, following up with clients and doing some stuff that is positive. But, even for me, there's times where I'm just going down that rabbit hole of just watching a lot of nothing that's not really being helpful to me. And I need to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I really appreciate your support and, your kind messages. It really, really means a lot. And, I'm grateful to have you as a friend, and, and I always support you as well. And, I love what you do. And I think, like you said, with social media, we have to be very, mindful and careful, don't we? And there's a lot of good out there on social media, but then you have to make sure you don't compare yourself to other people's lives, because like you said, you don't know their story or where they're at or how far they're along, and they might have down days and situations that they don't broadcast on social media as well as ourselves. So I think when you go in that place, it's quite a good place to be, because you can kind of not take it too personally, if that makes sense. You kind of see where they're at, and they're just highlighting a little kind of snippet of their lives, not kind of showing the full kind of show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like we talked about, a lot of the social media is just a highlight reel of what's the good points in their lives, and they don't really go into the struggles that they have, because everybody has struggles. I don't care who you are in the world. We're human beings and we have feelings, and there's days where we're just not 100. We might post that we're 100 on our social media feeds, but deep down we may not be that way. And the real way that we connect with people is being vulnerable with others. If you have this front of always being positive, up this and that, and you don't show any other emotions besides that, then people really can't relate to you. Now, you and I, Adam, we're positive people by nature. So a lot of the times we are positive because we are positive, and we're just being authentic to ourselves. But there's times where I am not positive. Something might have happened in my life that's thrown me off kilter, and I don't want to be positive, and and it's important that sometimes that we give ourselves that chance to lick our wounds a minute, give ourselves grace to say that, I'm not feeling it right now, and not put ourselves down because we're not positive in this moment. Allow ourselves to feel our feelings. And at some point, you're going to say to yourself, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And at that point, you can change it, but don't bury that feeling, because it's not a feeling that's popular, like being sad or being angry. Because I definitely feel those feelings. And sometimes I just need to pull away and give myself some grace.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And there's that quote, isn't there? Like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to recharge, you have to do what you've got to do and go away and do that so that you can, show up and do what you got to do, the week ahead or whenever it is, and not avoid those feelings, because we're human, aren't we? We do have those weeks or days or whenever that we might not feel the same usual self. And like you said, I think we're quite positive people, kind of by default. It's just kind of, I think, how we are. And I think sometimes it might be that kind of perspective. I think when you I know that you have your story and what you went through, your childhood and stuff. And I think when you sometimes go through certain things, it kind of gives you a certain perspective, I think, where you know what it's like to be on the other end, and you just have this kind of shine and drive, within you, don't you?
Yeah, I think the the emotion or the thing that you're saying is being grateful of what you have right now. And you alluded to my childhood and going through all that and where I am now. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the journey of it all, uh, because now I have perspective on my life and how I want to handle my life and how I want to treat other people going forward. Uh, so in the end, it's shaped me as a person and has given me that perspective that I need to help my other clients, to help my clients in their issues, whether it's getting over a mental ailment or a physical ailment or shooting for their dreams or an organization doing a workshop, whatever it is. I have that perspective, and people can sense that energy in me that I'm being true to who I am, and I think that's very important. Such as yourself, Adam, and you went through something as well as a child that shaped you and that you had to go through therapy for. And I think now, because you went through it and you went through the right channels, now you're helping other people with their struggles and kind of going through your own journey of it all. And I think that's a wonderful thing as well.
No, thanks, Paul. I really, really appreciate that. And I think, same to you as well, and everything that you're doing. And yeah, it's like pretty powerful, isn't it, when you think about it? Because I think at the time when you're going through it or what's happening, you just kind of in it. You don't think of anything on the other side. You don't think about at the time how this is going to help other people or what I'm going to do with it. I think you're just kind of in the weeds, so to speak. And I think like only until when you push through all that and you grow and you kind of develop and understand, and you understand yourself a lot more, it's that kind of perspective and those experiences that you can draw from, isn't it, to help other people, to empathize with other people. And it's like a bit like a magnifying glass almost. It's like you can just identify things in other people, probably what you've been through yourself. I think that's the best way I can describe it as well.
I'm right there with you, man. I think that hit the nail on the head on that.
Yeah, and but like when you think about it, you wouldn't change it, would you? Because I think every situation makes someone who they are, and you see a lot of people in life who are successful, and you see where they're, what they've been through and where they're at, and it kind of all kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Really, because I think like you see a lot of successful people have had a lot of failures, a lot of setbacks, or certain things happen, and you kind of think, well, they probably had to go through that to kind of get to where they are now. And I think, like you said, when people fear going into certain situations and comfort zones, you have to go through those motions, don't you, to kind of get to the other side and to have something great or to be successful in life. I think, or whatever. Success is very different for each person. That's probably another podcast, but to be successful at something, you have to jump through quite a few hoops, don't you? It's not going to unfold and manifest straight away. But I think, like you said, life's a journey, isn't it? It's a process. There's a lot of patience, and we're always, learning.
We are learning, and and that's that's the secret sauce. You know, you alluded to it. I mean, success is a moving target, so to speak, for a lot of other people. And you know, again, it goes back to don't compare yourself to anybody else. I mean, you look at some of these gurus, Tony Robbins, Gary V, Mel Rock. I mean, I can go on and name these people that are quote unquote successful people. But I mean, I don't think that defines success because they have a billion followers. I think success to me is feeling good about yourself in the moment, feeling good about yourself on who you are right now, not who you were in the past, not who you want to be in the future, but who you are right now. Because I don't care what kind of quote unquote success you have in your life. If you're not happy with yourself right this moment, you won't be happy with yourself down the road. No question about it. I mean, you look at if you won the lottery and you had billions and billions of dollars. Yeah, I mean, for a while you'd probably be happy. But again, though, after that thrill of being able to do whatever the heck you want to do at any time you want to do it, when that thrill goes away, you go back to who you are as a person. And if you weren't happy before that, you're not going to be happy now because of it. Um, so it's important that we just realize that it's who we are right in the moment of the process, because that's where the growth happens, is that journey of going somewhere. It's that purpose, and feeling good in the moment. I mean, I use this analogy, I probably used it in your podcast before, about a kid building Legos. When they're building Legos, they're having the most fun when they're actually creating and building something. They may have fun afterwards showing their parents of what they created, but when they're having the most joy is when they're actually creating something. And that's what we need to embrace in our lives now, is embracing the now and embracing who we are now, and having that, going back to that perspective in our lives.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really love that explanation of it, and I couldn't agree more with you. And I think it's that process and that building, isn't it, of that process of sculpting that thing and building that thing and developing it. And you see that on you ever seen like those cooking programs on TV or those cake programs, and you see them like building this crazy ass cake, and they're like, you
Yeah.
see all the fun they're having with it, and they get the final result. It's all that kind of time and pressure in the building and the fun. You know, it's not just that kind of end result, is it? And I think that isn't it, and I think that's life really. It's still the moments in between, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I know I'm mindful of time because I know if you okay for time.
A little bit. We got a little bit of more
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
that's right. Um, but I think, like you said, like you went back on liking who you are in the present moment. I think that's really key because you mentioned, you know, if you don't like if you don't like yourself who you are now, or you can't be okay with yourself now, you're going to carry that with you down the road. And I think people find that, you know, like they might not be okay with themselves for whatever reason, and you know, we've all, I think, lack confidence, or we lack confidence in some areas. That's part of being human, but we can work on that. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, like people might invest their money in things because that's what they think is happiness, you know, for whatever reason, like materialistically. But that deeper kind of seed in them and not being happy is still going to be there, like I said, down the line. And that kind of might wear off. For example, if you get a new watch or a new car or whatever, it's great for the first couple of weeks. And then afterwards, you've just got a car that, you know, at the end of the day. But it's being grateful, isn't it, for that thing, for what it does. You know, it gets you from A to B, etc. And if it's nice, it's got the little bonuses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, and it's all goes back to giving yourself grace and not comparing yourself to anybody else, because like we talked about with the social media and everything else like that, we see the highlight reel and we see some people with millions and millions of followers, and we think to ourselves, why don't we have these million? Don't worry about it. Who cares? You know, live the life you want to live. Some people don't like social media at all, and that's fine. I mean, they don't have to like social media. They don't have to go on it ever. You know, that's fine. I mean, they live the life they want to live, and they're happy that way. Some people go on social media a lot and are happy. So it's just having that balance of what makes you tick, what's that fire in your belly. And that's what it's all about. And you mentioned it before, is if you don't know what that is, that's okay. But the best thing to do is what you said, is try different things. Try to find out, trial and error of what could be something that will give me that fire in my belly. And that could be taking walks and smelling the flowers as you walk by. Again, it doesn't have to be so complex where you think that you have to, climb Mount Everest or do anything like that. That might not be your dream. You might have different dreams where you just want to be mindful in the presence, and then that's your secret sauce, is smelling the flowers and getting outside and doing what you want to do. And I say embrace it, embrace you, embrace the authentic person that you are, because we're all different and we need to embrace that.
I love that, and I think it's so important to embrace that, isn't it? It doesn't have to be, something massive like climbing a mountain or anything like that. You could go for a walk and just appreciate and embrace, like really small things, like like flowers. But all of that in itself, those small things are big things, really. And I mean, that's something that I'm learning in my life. I find, like being in a relationship, like it's sometimes just going for a walk, like you said, going somewhere nice, going for a walk, appreciating the sun, appreciate, the sunset, or, like being around trees, little tiny things like that, or just, it doesn't have to be something massive or kind of blown up proportion. It's those, I think appreciating those small things, allows you, to appreciate the other things, if that makes sense. I think you can't overlook those small things.
Absolutely. And speaking of the small things, you always bring up, books that you read. I just finished Green Lights on your recommendation. I really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
nice.
Do you have another recommendation that I should be looking for?
Yeah, I've just started reading it. Um, I put on my Instagram. Is it called Grind? The one I put on my photo.
Called Grind?
I mean, I think it's called Grind.
Okay.
It's I have to double check. But I know on the front cover it says Grind with an alarm clock in an alarm clock, and it's basically about kind of starting out in business, and so I think a lot of it talks about self awareness.
Hmm.
Is his name Joey Bigby or Joey McBigby? I'll have to add it to the bio, but that one's good. And I got one today actually called E Squared. It's called E Squared. I got it today in like a thrift store place, what we call them charity shops over here. And that talks about like kind of manifesting, I think, and using your energy and your mindset to kind of create what you want. Any other books? Yeah, that's one of my goals this year, to read more. That's
Yeah, and you'll probably get the royalties for mentioning these books, right?
yeah.
No, I think that no, I think that reading is a great thing. One thing though, like I see it drives me crazy, is like you see these things, especially on Instagram or the stuff that I follow. They say, CEO reads 60 books a year. Oh, stop with that nonsense. Read to read. Don't read because you want to be, a CEO and you think that's what CEOs do. Read because you enjoy the book. I mean, sometimes I have to reread things because my mind starts to wander, and I'm like, I really want to enjoy the book. But if you're just trying to railroad it just to get to 60 books, really not enjoying it. So I don't think that for me, I mean, you do your goals however you want to do your goals. But for me, I don't want to put a number on how many books I read. I just want to have for me, I just want to have a book that I'm reading all the time, just a constant book, to help me with escape. Just like watching a movie or something like that. Just escape, giving me new perspective and stuff. But I'm not a big deal person that feels like you have to read 60 books or this and that. That's great if you want to make that your goal and you absorb it, and that's great, and that's pushing you forward. I don't want to bash you on that. That's awesome. But for me, I don't like to have those type of goals. I like to read for more of an enjoyment or for educational purposes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think in terms of reading, I think like if I was reading 60 books, I think I'd forget. You would surely forget what the hell had happened in one of those books. I think you'd forget the information. I think, like you said, it's nice because if I sit down with a book, I look forward to it because I've got a lot of books in my kind of ownership, but I look forward to kind of sitting down with that book when I'm reading it, or you read a few pages and it kind of draws you in, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to then sit back down to then read it. And I think if you're just kind of doing a tick list, I don't think you appreciate it as much. I don't think you surely can't absorb it as much if you've got if you you know it doesn't you don't have to do 60 books to be a CEO. I think that's a bit crazy, isn't it? But I think there are qualities in people. Like people say, like people who read are kind of like leaders, if that makes like I kind of think like certain people in certain professions or certain areas of life read. I think you have to be. It's you kind of not curious, isn't it? I think there's a curiosity to it and a kind of thing because you're wanting to absorb information or to grow, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that run big companies that don't read at all. I know people in big companies that read a lot. I don't think that if you read or don't read, that makes you not successful or successful. I personally like to read, like I said, because I enjoy it. Enjoy hearing different points of view. I love it for educational purposes, especially being somebody in the coaching world. I always like to learn different things that's been going on, different studies to help me and help my clients reach whatever they're trying to reach. So I'm always trying to learn. But most of for me though, it's mostly pretty selfish. I just like to read and like to learn different things. And I don't know necessarily for me wanting to be a better leader. Maybe I definitely want to be a better coach always. But it's more, just more I just enjoy it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But people want to read to get ahead. That's why people go to school, right? People get degrees because they want to get ahead, and a lot of times they're reading. So I have no problems with that, but I just think that um, you just give yourself that grace where to have purpose in what you're doing, why you're doing that, why are you reading the book? Is it just to enjoy it? Is it for education? But like we go back to just reading it to hit 60 books. I don't know if that's a great purpose. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't know.
Doesn't sound too healthy to me. If I think
Yeah,
my eyes would drop out of my head if I was doing that. But
yeah,
I I think, like you said, it's a very very personal thing, isn't it? Reading books, what kind of books people like. And I think novels are great too. I've got a few novels that I need to read that I've bought. I think I bought one called The Magic Mountain, and it's based off a film called A Cure for Wellness. It's like a kind of a horror kind of film. Um, I think it's good to have that balance. It's always good to read, autobiographies. It's a very personal thing, isn't it? Reading books, because everyone has such a very different spectrum of what they like you said, and I
yeah,
think that's the main
definitely. I
thing.
mean, that's a goal that I have in my head about books is I read a lot of self-help just because of the work I'm in, and I enjoy it. I love it. But I think that I do like novels. I love watching movies. I love stories. So I want to make a point where I do read a few more novels because I do enjoy it. I just find myself going more to the self-help just because of the world I'm in, and I actually enjoy it. But I do also love it to read in novels, and I want to stretch myself a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's always, I think it's always good to do that because I got for Christmas last year a book called Creativity Inc. And it's about the Pixar, the people behind Pixar and the artists. and they kind of put a book together about their journeys and stuff and how they got into it. But I think books are interesting. You can learn a lot from books, can't you? You know, I think in any kind of genre of books, you can take something away from it, I think. And I'm the same as you. I've got a lot of. I'm always kind of reading, self help and business and things like that. But I think it's one of my goals this year, definitely to read more, and I think to kind of read some probably different books, to make that time to do that. And like, is there anything that you're kind of working on, or anything you want to promote, Paul? Like, I know you doing quite a few different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, Adam. I appreciate it. Yeah, so my Facebook group, Rewrite Your Story, it's a space where people come together all over the world and they're able to share their stories. And we're just there to support. Nobody judges. We're only there to support each other and celebrate your wins and lift you up on your losses, because we're just there to help each other. I do monthly meetup groups once a month. They're absolutely free. Again, where we do it in a virtual live setting where we allow space for people to share what's been going on. And as a collective group, we help each other. We have different topics, like this week we're going to be talking about, or next week rather, we're going to talk about manifesting. That's January 25th. So that's going to be a good one. We're bringing on a speaker and an intuitionist, Michelle Oxton. So that's great. And then down the road, we're working on in-person stuff. So if anybody is in the Southern California area in the United States, we're working on some workshops on getting you out of the comfort zone, allowing a space to be vulnerable, to share, clearing the mind for goal setting, and most importantly, taking back your life pen and starting to write the story that you want for yourselves, not for anybody else, but for yourselves. And then if you want to reach me, my website's a call to action.coach. You can set an appointment to talk to me there. I do one-on-one settings. So a lot of good stuff coming ahead, and I appreciate the question.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome. I'll always, promote whatever you're doing, and I really love, all the work you're doing, and I think it's really, really, kind of inspiring and motivating, and hopefully one day, I can attend one of your workshops, or we can do something in person, and I wish you all the best, and everything that you do, and I really, really appreciate, that we have this friendship and we have this ability to do, these podcasts and things.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be great to see in person, and even if that's just breaking bread, it would be
Yeah.
awesome to see you live. So that'd be great. But Adam, it's so good to be on your podcast. I love these conversations that we have. We have a great flow with each other, and I'm excited to see the next steps in your life, Adam. I mean, you're a busy young man. I mean, look at you. You do run the podcast. You have a full-time job. You're in a relationship. I mean, you are a go getter. So it's going to be exciting to see what 2022 brings for you, Adam.
No, thank you, Paul. I really, really appreciate your support, and I really value everything that you have to say, and I really appreciate your compliments, and I look forward to what you do this year and everything that you're doing as well. And hopefully one day we can meet up in person and do something, and yeah, I look forward to next time, and keep doing what you're doing, and I'll speak soon.
All right, Adam. See you soon.
All the best, man. Take care.